10-year-old girl makes a dull magazine cover with her black silk pics. She expertly pulls out her lipstick and applies it to her lips. Then she stood up and started dancing to the beat of the music. Her behavior is very inappropriate for her age. The girl's name is Mary and she's still in elementary school. She's a very special student in her class. While everyone is doing their homework, she puts her hands on her desk and does all sorts of sexy poses. She does it all to make her mother happy. At 10 years old, she lives with her grandmother and her mother only visits her once in a while. Every time she came home, she left in a hurry. One day her mother put on her crown and took her picture. She was surprised to find that Mary was very good at what she did. Her pictures were much better than those of the doll models. Her mother took her to her studio and undid her braids to reveal her fluffy blonde hair. Then she took out her exquisite tattoo and put it on Mary. For the first time, she was a bit shy and would only giggle for the camera. But with her mother's guidance, she soon learned how to control her expression. She tilted her head up and pressed her forehead with her slender hands. Mary was as beautiful as a gorgeous doll. She was elegant and dignified, yet she elicited sympathy. Her mother was so pleased with her. Mary saw her mother smile for the first time, and she was happy too. The next day after school, her mother came to pick her up for the first time. Mary was pleasantly surprised, but then her mother took off her clothes in public. She changed Mary's dress into a lace dress. Despite the stares of her classmates, Mary didn't resist to make her mother happy. Then they went to a party without stopping. Artists were mesmerized by her photographs. Her clear eyes and gorgeous clothes had an extraordinary charm. They decided to organize an art exhibition in her honor, which was sure to attract many people. But these photos are not enough for an exhibition. The girl poses sensuously for the reporter. Her slender arms are wrapped around the man's neck, and she snuggles gently against him. And this charming girl is only 10 years old. All this comes from her mother's nurturing. The success of her photo shoots made her see the business opportunity. She went crazy, making Mary wear sexier outfits and instructing her to pose seductively. She even made Mary spread her legs. At the age of 10, Mary realized what was going on, and for the first time, she showed resistance. But she was coaxed by her mother to do as she was told. She became instantly famous with these explicit photos. Her mother became a celebrity in the photographic world and made a fortune. Mary's popularity even extended to her school. Her classmates laughed at her revealing photos and thought it was a sign of a bad student. They began to isolate her as a group and even gave her a nasty chef in gym class. Mary fought back and argued that it was art, but she was still skeptical as she watched her classmates look at her differently. Her mother's behavior continued, and she even sent her to the home of a famous model. She instructed the two of them to cling to each other in intimate poses, as if they were a couple who had known each other for a long time. The mother believed that art was about expressing oneself. She ripped off Mary's dress, leaving her in a bodysuit. She made the two of them act even more sensually. The model reached out and kept touching her skin. The mother didn't stop her, and even went over to her and tried to take off her panties. At this moment, Mary's emotions finally erupted. She knew what shame was and couldn't stand it any longer. But her mother retorted that it was art. Mary refused to believe her mother's lies and left in a rage. The mother pressed the shutter and took a picture of her daughter in the toilet. The action enraged Mary. She spat at her mother. Surprisingly, instead of reflecting on her mistake, the mother found a new model to replace her. As she watched the new model in the studio wearing her own clothes and being photographed by her mother, Mary began to panic. She was afraid that her mother would abandon her. She puts on sexy clothes again and poses sexily to attract her mother's attention. But she didn't know it was all her mother's plan. Mary was doing something she didn't like, and she wasn't happy at all. One day she was at a friend's house and saw a magazine with herself on the cover. She realized that her privacy was now public knowledge. She screamed and hissed in pain at her mother for doing this to her. But her mother said she did everything because she loved her. Only with fame could she have everything. Soon after her grandmother died, Mary was left to live with her mother. Her full of doubts were no longer answered. Mary fell off the wagon and took her best friend smoking with her. And her mother was sued for taking explicit underage photos. Custody of her daughter is in danger of being transferred. Fearing that her artistic career would be jeopardized, she coaxed Mary into doing a play with her. She said that she would never take large-scale photos again. That next day, a social worker came to the house to inspect the situation. She was shocked by the weird dolls in front of her. That place was filthy, with food scraps everywhere. It's impossible for a child to grow up healthily in such a place. But after the mother and Mary begged, the social worker decided to keep custody for the mother. No sooner had she left than the mother broke her promise to her daughter. She turned around and sold the photos to a magazine for a fortune. On the street, Mary looked around and saw her photos all over the place. She was completely devastated. Her favorite mother had completely betrayed her. She couldn't stand it any longer. Mary angrily tore down the photos. Then she ran to a woman and intentionally took her purse. She managed to get into a juvenile prison and leave her nightmare home. She even cut off her long hair. When her mother came to visit, she leapt out of the window and ran wildly into the bright sunshine. She escaped her mother's clutches forever. This is a movie adapted by the director from his own true events. When a daughter's love for her mother is worn down little by little, then her love will turn into hatred one day.